And we absolutely have confidence in our plates.
If you find this license plate hard to read, you're not alone. Tonight, the Ford government is taking heat over the new Ontario plates. The new license plates, just one issue getting plenty of attention at Queen's Park today as politicians return to the legislature for the first time this year. Lisa Shing joins us live now. And Lisa, a number of government ministers in the spotlight there today.
Definitely, Dwight, and certainly the education minister being one of them, considering a full-fledged province-wide strike is just days away. That's bound to be a talker for the next few months on education, considering tensions are showing no signs of abating. Now, also back on the radar, those license plates, the new ones issued by this new government, as well as the new autism program. Parents of children with autism welcomed legislators back to Queen's Park today, asking the government to implement a needs-based therapy faster.
If these children have a hard enough life as it is, they need to not be waiting. They need what is owed to them. It is a medical necessity.
The government says it's in the process of creating a new program. Some services will be ready by the end of this year, with the rest coming in 2021.
This is what you're going to have to do on the final.
Meanwhile, teachers' unions and the province are still at a stalemate. The English Catholic teachers will head back to the bargaining table, but if there isn't an agreement by next week, teachers will begin rotating strikes. And to ramp up the pressure, millions of kids will be out of class Friday for a province-wide strike.
It's not lost on us that this is having a human impact, financially, emotionally, and otherwise, on all the parties, including, most importantly, our parents.
Nothing! It's just blue!
Another big talker in the House and online, an issue with Ontario's new license plates.
Why is the government scrapping perfectly good white plates when their glowing propaganda plates are problematic?
The opposition grilled the government on the blue plates that rolled out earlier this month after several photos posted online show they can't be read in the dark, including one from a police officer. Ontario's Consumer Services Minister defended the new plates in various ways.
We're using modern technology that's already been employed in other provinces and states, and we welcome people's feedback.
Police say they were consulted before the plates were rolled out, but have been hearing complaints from officers.
It's not unusual for new technology to have glitches. That's what we hope, that the plates right now is just going through a bit of a glitch phase.
Now, Minister Lisa Thompson wouldn't say exactly what the government would be doing about these glitches, just that it continues to issue these license plates and that it's accepting feedback.
Thank you, Lisa. Police were called to Doug Ford's Etobicoke home today, the Premier's office said in a statement. Earlier today, the Toronto Police Service was called to the Premier's home to investigate a suspicious package received by the Premier's wife. The package arrived in the mail earlier today. Police quickly mobilized to assess the situation and clear the family of any harm. The substance was determined to be a mixture of non-toxic materials. The Eglinton Crosstown has been delayed yet again. What Metrolinx is blaming this latest snag on, coming up in just a few minutes. Some Via Rail service will resume this week despite continuing anti-pipeline protests. Beginning Thursday, all trains will run from Toronto to London, Windsor, Sarnia, and Niagara. Via says trains will also run again between Ottawa, Montreal, and Quebec City. Via passengers who already had one of these trips rebooked will have their reservations honored. Now, the company says as of yesterday, 470 trains have been canceled due to the protests. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau called for dialogue today to end the protests, receiving divided reaction from MPs. Julie Van Duzen has more.
It's now nearly 2 weeks that Mohawk protesters sympathetic to Indigenous opponents of a pipeline in northern BC have continued to shut down Canada's rail service. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was back in the House of Commons this morning, calling for calm.
I know that people's patience is running short.
Trudeau says a show of force is not the way to go.
And today, as Prime Minister, I am once again formally extending my hand in partnership and trust.
Conservative leader Andrew Scheer called Trudeau's response weak. He demanded a plan to deal with what he calls the radical activists and end the blockades now.
But nobody, and I mean nobody, has the right to hold our economy hostage, Mr. Speaker.
Demonstrations have popped up in different parts of the country to support some Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs in British Columbia who oppose the Coastal GasLink pipeline. Rail shutdowns have severely impacted the economy. Carolyn Bennett, Minister for Indigenous Relations, was in BC yesterday seeking a meeting with hereditary chiefs, but didn't get one. Perry Bellegarde, the head of the Assembly of First Nations, says the pipeline company, Coastal GasLinks, should get back to the table.
The hereditary chiefs, to my understanding, were put to the side. And that's not acceptable.
There are MPs who want to continue dialogue, and there are MPs who want the police to act. The Prime Minister met today privately to consult with all opposition leaders except for Andrew Scheer, saying that Scheer's comments have disqualified him. Julie Van Dusen, CBC News, Ottawa.
One of Justin Trudeau's political adversaries provided some advice for him on how to resolve the ongoing blockades. Here's what independent MP and former Attorney General Jody Wilson-Raybould had to say.
Well, I appreciated the Prime Minister's comments in the House today, but in terms of leadership, I think that the Prime Minister and all members of the House of Commons, particularly leaders, have to lead. And I would recommend the Prime Minister get on a plane, pick up the Premier, and get up to Wet'suwet'en territory.
For nearly 2 weeks, protesters have been blocking rail traffic in the community of Tyendinaga near Belleville. Olivia Stefanovich is there.
It's now day 13 of this demonstration, and the Mohawks have shown no sign they plan to dismantle their camp. There are several tents behind me across the tracks, as well as the centerpiece of this action, which is a snowplow that's sitting right on the edge of the main CN rail line that runs from Montreal to Toronto. A suggestion was made earlier this morning by a Mohawk chief that perhaps these Mohawks should consider pulling back because perhaps they should ask themselves whether their point has been made. Take a listen.
I'm simply pleading with the protesters that have you made your point yet? Has the government and the industry understood? I think they did. Now, removing the blockades doesn't mean that you surrender anything. It just means you tell the government, okay, we're going to show good faith, we're going to remove the blockades, but keep this in mind. If you do not continue on a dialogue of respect with the hereditary chiefs, then we'll be back.
That's the perspective of at least one Mohawk leader. Other First Nations leaders say they want the Mohawks and the federal government to concentrate on dialogue. The conversation has started, but it's clear more work needs to be done. The Mohawks say they will not leave until RCMP get out of Wet'suwet'en territory. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Tyendinaga, Ontario.
And you can find the very latest on the protests and blockades here and around the country. Just head to cbcnews.ca. Bad news if you were hoping to ride the Eglinton Crosstown LRT next fall. Metrolinx announced today it's pushing back the opening of that line again until 2022. Farah Morelli joins us live now from Yonge and Eglinton with more on this. And Farah, what's the reason for this delay now?
Dwight, I had a chance to speak to the president and CEO of Metrolinx today, and what he did, or what he told me, was that the latest delay is being blamed on two things. One is a problem pretty much right underneath where I'm standing at Eglinton Station underground, and two, productivity issues with Crosslinks. That's this private consortium of companies that's actually building this project. He also told me that the above ground work for this project will likely continue longer than expected, and that is what is not sitting well with businesses today. This tangle of construction and traffic is what businesses have had to deal with since 2011. They say it's disrupting their ability to keep operating, and today they said they've simply had enough.
Got my phone if you feel like, maybe pull up on your driveway.
Because that's how it goes, you know what I mean? I have customers like literally don't come down here no more because of the construction. They don't want to.
Since construction of the LRT started, Alwyn Nurse says it's been hard just to keep the regular customers. He's had to get creative.
I have to literally do half price, do giveaways, do a whole heap of stuff to encourage people to take the drive down to Eglinton, you know.
News of yet another delay didn't come as a surprise. but hit hard.
And if it takes 10 more years to get it done, then they do that. But what about the small businesses? What about the people like me who have to wake up every day and do this? You know what I mean?
And it's not just business owners who say they've had enough.
You know, it was supposed to open in September 2021. It's now going to be sometime in 2022.
Oh, brother, no way.
I think it's unfair. You know, obviously, I'm assuming there are a lot of people who are looking towards it, and it's unfortunate for them, especially those who have jobs on the opposite sides of the city.
I'm fed up. I am.
They've had more than enough, but it's a necessary evil, right?
Metrolinx is blaming an underground issue at Eglinton Station for the delay and productivity issues with the consortium building the project.
Today, I have unreservedly apologized to my fellow communities.
Today, the CEO and president of Metrolinx couldn't say exactly when a decision was made to push back the opening and wouldn't give a precise new opening date.
When in 2022 do you expect this to actually be opening?
Because we are right in the middle of negotiations on the commercial items that underpin the schedule, I don't want to declare a date yet.
If the roadblocks had been removed for the Eglinton Crosstown project, it could have been delivered up to 3 years earlier.
Today, the Minister of Transportation used the announcement of the delay to slam the previous Liberal government and to bolster a new piece of legislation.
What this bill proposes is ways to streamline measures that government is in control of, and things like permitting around the transit corridor.
They know what they're doing. They know how much it's affecting people.
But that doesn't mean much to business owners like Nurse. At the end of the day, it won't bring business back now.
Well, he's apologizing for the delay and for inconveniencing us, but it still doesn't fix the problems that we have in real life.
In the past hour, two city councillors, Josh Matlow and Mike Cole, held a press conference calling this construction mess a nightmare. They said that businesses are at a breaking point, and they put forward a three-point plan to the province. So the things that they're calling for is, one, to remove some of the construction blockades in areas where the work is finished. They're also calling for the possibility of opening some of these stations in the western areas that are done earlier than 2022 to get things moving. And the big thing that they're calling for is compensation from the province for some of these businesses that have been affected. No word, Dwight, on whether the province would actually consider doing any of those things.
Thank you, Farah. It was a very sloppy commute in the city today, with the snow turning to rain, making the roads and sidewalks slushy. Environment Canada issued a travel advisory for the GTA. It will get even slipperier out there as temperatures dip again. And is that the direction they're heading in, dipping, Colin?
Yeah, you've got it. They are going to be dipping over the next, few days. We're going to see some much colder air moving in after today. Hey, of course it changed over to some rain because our temperature went up to about 5 degrees, unofficially our afternoon high, and just starting to come down. Those winds have turned towards the west, pretty blustery, but still bringing the temperatures down gradually. We're still sitting at 3, but it feels like it's a little bit cooler than that, certainly about -2, although we don't necessarily talk about wind chills when the temperature is above freezing. These are the current sustained winds, and then anywhere where the winds are still gusting over 30 kilometers an hour, you'll see a number. So Mississauga, at Pearson, they've calmed down a little bit, St. Catharines as well, but Hamilton, we're still seeing gusts over 40 kilometers an hour, and towards Barrie, you're still seeing gusts up close to 60 kilometers an hour from the west. So still a little bit of drizzle or flurry activity, but essentially we see some squalls developing there in the lee of Georgian Bay, and what's going to happen is as the winds turn towards the northwest, we'll see them setting up a little differently, coming off of Lake Huron here, a snow squall watch for Grey Bruce through that region, Dundalk, where you may see some whiteout conditions, but this is important even into the GTA, as some of those flurries can make their way down towards us. So even in the overnight, we might have some, and tomorrow will be kind of a mix of sun and cloud, but at times some scattered flurries, or even just a burst of snow coming through, and then it dies off. But that's just because of the winds coming across the lake. Overnight tonight, -5. Now that's still well above seasonal, but it's going to feel like -12. And then I have to tell you, tomorrow afternoon, we're going to -3. Huge departure then from the temperatures today. But really, it's after that very cold air is going to move in. We might get into a situation where we have some extreme cold weather alerts coming back at us. But I have a phenomenal weekend forecast. All that coming up, Dwight.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
This weather update is brought to you by Fairmont Le Chateau Frontenac, the best location for your next spring break getaway in Quebec City.
A government-chartered plane is on its way to pick up Canadian passengers aboard the cruise ship quarantined in Japan. It's expected to fly them out on Thursday and bring them to CFB Trenton. The health minister was asked today if those evacuees would face 2 additional weeks of quarantine.
In every circumstance, we'll be considering that particular person's health and the risk of further infection. What we're trying to do as a country is do our global part in containing the spread in Canada.
Everyone is hoping to get on the evacuation plane will have to be screened and cleared of any symptoms. The Diamond Princess has become the largest concentration of infections outside of mainland China. At least 43 of the 256 Canadians aboard have tested positive for the coronavirus. More than 540 cases have been reported on the ship so far. The 14-day quarantine for the Diamond Princess will end tomorrow, but Canadian passengers on the ship have to decide if they want to wait one more day to take the evacuation plane to Canada. One couple, though, is now facing the additional prospect of separation. Sasha Petrusik has their story.
For more than 200 Canadians aboard the Diamond Princess, these last days of their quarantine have been full of anticipation and frustration, waiting for one final round of test results for a rescue flight promised by Ottawa rescheduled.
And so we're back to square one. So not happy, not very disappointed, very stressful. And it's not a good feeling.
But it was nothing like the shock delivered to Greg Garex when 2 men in hazmat suits showed up at his cabin door today. You have the coronavirus, they said. Get ready to go to hospital.
I don't know how I got it. I don't know where I got it.
His wife Rose is virus-free, bound for home, while Greg is banned from flying.
How he can be positive and me negative when we've been sharing everything.
I talked to them just a few minutes after the news. So what are you thinking right now? How are you feeling?
Scared. I don't want to go into the Japanese medical system.
Apologies there, we lost the audio on that story. A Chinese doctor who helped battle COVID-19 since the outbreak began has died. Wuhan's health bureau announcing today that Liu Jiming became infected and died despite what they called all-out attempts to save him. Liu is at least the 7th health worker to die of the COVID-19 disease in China. He was just 51 years old. We know the coronavirus is having an impact on restaurants here in the GTA, but what about other businesses?
Right now, our entire production floor is awaiting a simple label, which is a beautiful metal piece. We can't go any further until this label comes back in.
Still ahead, how the outbreak is taking a bite out of Toronto companies' bottom lines. But first, the jury is now deliberating in the Harvey Weinstein trial. We'll take you to New York after the break. The Boy Scouts of America has filed for bankruptcy protection as it faces multiple sex abuse lawsuits. Several thousand people have alleged being molested decades ago when they were scouts by scoutmasters or other leaders. The bankruptcy filing will put a hold on the lawsuits for now. The 110-year-old organization could be forced to sell off some of its vast property holdings to help pay for victims' compensation. Its liabilities have been listed at $500 million to $1 billion. Boy Scouts says the local councils and scouting programs will continue during the process. The jury is now deliberating in the Harvey Weinstein trial. They received their final instructions from the judge in the New York courtroom this morning. Zoleka Nathu has the latest.
Good morning, everybody.
The 12-member jury was given some crucial direction from the judge before heading into deliberations. First, they were told that if they find Harvey Weinstein guilty, it must be beyond a reasonable doubt. This case in large part comes down to which side they believe the most and which testimony they find the most credible. And the other thing they were told is that they can only look at evidence within the courtroom, nothing that they've heard from outside. Solidarité. That is particularly significant given the strength of the Me Too movement and the number of stories about Weinstein that have surfaced over the last 2.5 years.
How you feeling, Harvey?
Weinstein is accused of raping a woman in her Manhattan hotel room in 2013. That woman is Jessica Mann. And he's also accused of performing non-consensual oral sex on another woman in 2006. That woman is Miriam Haley. Both of those women provided compelling and emotional testimony in court, but the defense team did manage to poke some holes in that case, saying that the women were opportunists and were taking advantage of Weinstein's contacts in the entertainment industry. If the defense team is able to plant doubt in the jurors' minds, he could go free. But if he's convicted on the most serious charge of predatory sexual assault, that carries a mandatory life sentence. Zulaikha Nathu, CBC News, New York.
Still ahead, we look at the growing pest problem inside Toronto community housing buildings. Why did requests for pest control jump nearly 20% last year? Plus, City Hall beefs up its security, what you'll have to go through if you want to access city services coming up.
From sleeping in boarded up houses like this one to dressing like a man to feel safe, being a woman experiencing homelessness isn't easy.
We don't come back until it's dark because we don't want the traffic in and out of the places that we're staying, because that's kind of baiting ourselves out or heating ourselves out, they say.
I'm Talia Ricci, and coming up, we spend some time with a woman who's been on and off the streets for a decade and learn what her day is like and some of the challenges she faces.
Last month, we told you about the lack of women's shelters in Brampton and introduced you to a few women living on the streets. They spoke about the importance of resources and how the city is in need of a dedicated women's shelter. Today, Talia Ricci spent time with one of them to better understand the challenges she faces.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Joy Bailey. I've been off and on the streets for about 10 years.
Why is it so critical that we don't reveal the location that we're at right now?
Safety reason number one, being on the street, as a woman too.
And the fact that you took like the fur off your hood?
Just for safety, because if they see two of us and then we look like men walking down the street, they don't seem to mess with us as much.
Is this like a fairly safe situation here because not a lot of people know about it, or like in this specific spot?
When you're on the streets, people do know word of mouth, and we have people approach us, can we come? We don't want too many people in our spot because then they invite other people, and that will actually have our area just completely blown apart where we won't be able to go back to it. We don't come back until it's dark. Because we don't want the traffic in and out of the places that we're staying.
What are some of the dangers of that?
People knowing where we are. I've actually been robbed. This is the house that we were staying in. Be careful.
Is an abandoned house like this kind of one of the better options?
Oh, there's actually no better option when you're out here. It actually isn't enclosed, so if it rains, we can come back and hang our stuff up, and it kind of dries out during the day.
How many spots have you had?
I would say probably over about 15.
You mentioned that you wake up around 6 a.m. and then you walk to Grace Place?
Yeah, Grace United. They have breakfast, lunches when they have the students on. They have showers.
All right, let's go in. What would be kind of your dream life?
Waking up in the morning and having a cup of tea and turning on the radio. How is it taken for granted for people? But for me, and I'm not going to cry, that would be something.
You mentioned that you think maybe you would get into some sort of like social work. What makes you want to help people down the road?
I think it's because I've been down the road so many times, and I've tripped, I've fallen, I got back up by the help of other people, by the resources that we have out here. So I was thinking, once I get stable, maybe we'll go back to school, figure something out there. Just baby steps until I learn how to walk. And you could crawl, and then you have to learn how to walk again.
Cockroaches, bed bugs, and mice were on the rise in Toronto community housing buildings last year, according to two new reports.
It's actually not surprising, and Toronto community housing is not alone in those statistics. I am absolutely certain that the hotels and the other social housing and private landlords are experiencing the same issues as we are. It's just that we have more units than they do.
In one report, the housing agency's staff say demand for pest control treatments jumped almost 18% in 2019 compared to the previous year. Another TCH report says the problems got worse as the year went on. TCH declined to speak on camera with CBC Toronto about the reasons behind the increased demand for anti-bug and rodent treatments, but in a statement, the agency put part of the blame on a citywide surge in rat and mouse populations. If you are visiting Toronto City Hall, get ready for some extra security.
There were, threat assessments that were done by Toronto Police, by Public Safety Canada, and the recommendations coming back were you need to enhance your security at City Hall, whether it's through, a metal detector type setup that we have now or a baggage check setup that we had prior. It was part of, the fact that this is an iconic building.
Starting today, visitors can expect extra screening to get into the main atrium, customer service counters, and both council chamber and committee rooms. This will include going through a metal detector and getting your bag inspected. These changes follow several council votes and public consultations. As of today, visitor access will be permitted through the front doors facing Nathan Phillips Square, the parking garage, and the path entrance. Screening won't be required to access the main information desk, library, washrooms, or the City Hall Cafe. They represent some of the country's biggest manufacturers, and they say the train blockade near Belleville is having a huge impact on business.
Every day the rail blockade continues, over $425 million worth of goods are sitting.
idle. If our export customers lose faith in our ability to deliver products in a timely fashion, we lose these customers. And a domino effect is set in motion with far-reaching implications.
Representatives with the Canadian manufacturers and exporters were speaking today about the ongoing blockade. They warned there will be planned closures and layoffs soon if the situation is not resolved. Now, manufacturing in China has taken a big hit as the country deals with the coronavirus. Many plants remain closed, and that's having an impact on businesses here as well. Lorenda Redekop explains.
The jackets are made here in Canada, mostly. One snag, that little piece of branding on the sleeve comes from China, but workers there are still at home, given concerns with COVID-19.
And right now, our entire production floor is awaiting a simple label, which is a beautiful metal piece. We can't go any further until this label comes back in.
International shipments from China are also stalled. It's frustrating for a company that only recently expanded from duvets into also making jackets. This is just one of so many items that Canada brings in from China. Some of the others include everything from electronics and clothing to garlic. And it's a much worse situation than during SARS. One retail expert who I spoke with told me that the amount of exports from China has quadrupled since the early 2000s. Apple just announced yesterday it expects iPhone product shortages around the world. Another way the economy here could suffer: tourism. This is the low season, but flights and group tours from China have been canceled. Chinese tourists make up the largest overseas market for the Toronto area.
The Chinese are our highest spending market. On average, they spend $2,800 a person when they come to Canada. So it really hurts from that perspective because they love going shopping, and particularly high-end luxury shopping. And so a lot of our stores will really feel that lack of sale.
In some cases, stores could struggle to fill shelves, with many items such as zippers and fabrics coming from China.
I have a friend in the jewelry business, and they are close to being out of stock as well. It is literally, the product is sitting in a container along with, I'm sure, tens of thousands of other containers, just waiting their queue to be able to leave the country.
He says this could result in changes long after coronavirus fears are over, with a shift to rely less on one country for so many products, and possibly more manufacturing coming back to Canada. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos is pledging $10 billion US to climate change research. It's his own money and amounts to about 10% of his net worth. In a social media post, Bezos called climate change the biggest threat to our planet. Amazon, which delivers hundreds of millions of packages every year, has been heavily criticized for its own environmental impact. If the weather cooperated this morning, we could have seen a rare eclipse-like event. It's known as lunar occultation, and it occurs when the moon passes in front or occults the planet Mars, blocking the red planet from view. For sky watchers, it's an exciting time as this event doesn't happen very often.
This particular occultation of Mars by the moon will not happen again in 2020. So we won't be able to see it again until late 2021 is our very, very next chance. So this is our only chance to view it, so we're really excited.
This particular event was only able to be seen in North America. It happened around 7:30 this morning in Toronto, but the messy weather blocked our view of it. So we didn't get to see it. This messy weather is to blame, call it.
That's exactly right. And, you know, you just can't time that. You can't control that. And often I do give forecasts for things like that or let you know it's coming. But what was the point? No, we had to focus on the system we saw today, brought the snow and then turning over to the slush and the rain. Well, the winds came in as well. And the breezy conditions, not as strong as what they were earlier, but still some breezy conditions are going to carry on with us into the forecast for the next, say, 24 hours or so. Cold air is going to move in. We're going to have a couple of very cold nights, but at the end of the week and into the weekend, there's an incredible pattern setting up. unusual for February in terms of the temperatures that are going to go along with this. So our daytime highs today, speaking about incredible, well above seasonal, there you go, 5 degrees in Toronto and Oshawa, Hamilton, St. Catharines up to 6 degrees. And then the current temperatures, okay, we're falling off. St. Catharines still holding on at 4, Toronto at 2. It does feel cooler than that because of these winds. Now, these are the sustained winds. Even these have backed off a little bit. They're coming in right around 20 to 25, just over kilometers an hour. But then any area where you see a number, that's because the gusts are exceeding 30 kilometers an hour. So they've dropped off in St. Catharines and Kitchener, but look at Barrie. You've come back a little, still over 45 kilometers an hour and over 50 for Peterborough. Those strong winds from the west, well, they'll back off a little bit, but they're also going to shift to the northwest. And as they do, it means the squalls develop here towards Grey Bruce area. So there's a snow squall watch where you get into that risk of seeing some whiteout conditions certainly coming through. And that's really going to be overnight tonight into the day tomorrow. By Thursday morning, we should be in the clear with that, so to speak. And we're in the clear for the most part with that system, of course, that's pushed off to the east of us. We still are going to have to deal with some cloud cover and some scattered flurries because of those squalls. At times, some of these are going to make their way all the way into the GTA as we go through tonight and into tomorrow too. So kind of a mix of sun and cloud through the day, and then all of a sudden you may get a burst of a little snow shower or see some flurries in their skies as well. That cold air is going to seep in so that by the time we get to Thursday morning and even Friday morning, we're talking about the temperatures being around -10 or colder, but it feeling like -20 with the wind chill, so we could get into some extreme cold weather alerts coming back into play. All right, that's towards Friday morning. By the time we get into Friday afternoon, the temperatures start to come back up, and as we head towards the weekend, wait till you see. 5 days, right around the corner. For now, let me show you the overnight temperatures. -5 for the city, feeling like -12. Scattered flurries possible tomorrow too, and our temperatures quite drastically different from those temperatures I was showing you at the beginning of this segment with our highs around 5 and 6 degrees through today. So this is where we go tomorrow afternoon with that breeze out of the west to northwest. Now, this is what I'm really encouraged by. So, okay, it is going to be very cold Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, -6, coldest day of the week. But look at these temperatures and look at this sunshine as we go into the weekend. High pressure is going to be setting up. It's going to stick around. A southwesterly breeze is going to warm us up too. Doesn't look like February, does it, Dwight?
It does not. Thank you, Colette.
You're welcome.
Coming up, it's something we all love to complain about. It's not the weather, though.
We've heard loud and clear from Canadians that their cell phone bills are a concern to them.
Too much money, not enough data, and bad service to boot. Is it time for Canada to shake up the cell phone provider landscape? We'll take you to Ottawa, where a government agency is debating just that. Next.
Welcome to your Toronto Newsroom. Good evening. I'm Mike Wise.
Sky-high cell phone bills are at the top of the agenda in a new round of hearings by Canada's telecommunications regulator. The CRTC is dedicating 9 days to an examination of the state of the country's wireless market. David Thurton has more from the nation's capital.
Canadians love to talk about their cell phone bills, and today the CRTC is jumping into that conversation.
We've heard loud and clear from Canadians that their cell phone bills are a concern to them.
These hearings, a solution the CRTC will consider is allowing smaller carriers to piggyback off Rogers, Bell, and TELUS, forcing the big three to offer wholesale access to their networks. The hope is that smaller players will offer cheaper plans. Samuel Bichet used to run one until the CRTC shut it down.
It's important to disrupt in order to push the envelope and put Canada at the forefront of technology. If we're going to continue to be complacent, then nothing is going to change.
But the industry is warning against these changes, saying this type of competition will undercut the established companies.
That's a very rare regulatory intervention around the world and would actually negatively impact the investment capacity of our network operators, which would be detrimental to the quality of services that we can offer Canadians.
And Canada's independent competition watchdog agrees. Sort of. It says regional carriers like SaskTel in Saskatchewan are already driving down prices regionally. And experts say this has caused a reaction from companies like Bell and Rogers.
When they are faced with the possibility of losing specific customers, they might actually offer targeted discounts to retain those customers or perhaps win them back.
The Competition Bureau says that opening up the market too much to smaller carriers could slow down growth. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
I'm not having my big day, our big day, compromised because Alexis wanted to chill in a tankini for 6 months.
A new Canadian TV classic sets a Canadian Screen Award record. How Schitt's Creek made history next.
What defines a city? It's the people. Torontonians are diverse, friendly, fanatical, and adventurous. We are the mirror to this amazing, shining city on the lake.
Our Toronto is your Toronto.
Roland and Jocelyn don't think we can take care of a kid.
That's an argument I'm willing to lose.
David, you're basically 40 years old. I shouldn't be able to make you feel bad about anything.
E-class. Keep this one to the lovers.
The nominations are out for this year's Canadian Screen Awards. The awards recognize the best in Canadian film and television. This year, the CBC comedy Schitt's Creek scored a record-breaking number of nominations. Yelena Adzik is here with more on the noms. A big day for Schitt's Creek, right in the middle of their final season.
It's incredible, Dwight. 26 nominations. It's never happened before in one Canadian Screen Award. So let me take you through a few of those because it's too many to mention all of them, but it does include Best Comedy Writing, in which 4 of the 5 nominated episodes in that category belong to Schitt's Creek. And in the comedy acting categories, the Levies are both up for Best Lead Actor and on-screen mother-daughter duo, Catherine O'Hara and Anne Murphy. They are both nominated for Best Lead Actress. So there's a little bit of competition going on just within their own show. So this is really something that is incredible. Obviously started out CBC, went to Netflix, and ended up being nominated for Outstanding Comedy Series at the 2019 Emmy Awards. So yeah, just incredible for them. I'm going to give you a look at some of the other comedies that they would be up against. So there you see Kim's Convenience. I know you like that show, Dwight.
I love that one.
Yes, Workin' Moms, Jan, starring Jan Arden. I love that one, and Letterkenny. So it's a pretty good race if you like your comedies. Now, moving on to talk about drama a little bit, we have to talk about Anne with an E, because Dwight, this is a show that we know got canceled, and there was an uproar. Fans were saying, get it back on the air. I'm going to give you a little bit of a snippet in a second, but first I just want to tell you that this is a show that received 17 nominations, including Best Drama Series, Best Direction, and Best Writing. And what I like about this show, and so many fans as well, Dwight, is the fact that they have taken material that was original source material and they have ramped it up, made it more current, more relevant, and certainly more diverse. Have a little snippet right now.
Your eyes seeking. I want to learn about my family, my lineage. I feel the need to know them. I want to know who made me.
All right, so that's Anne with an E. And just to show you the rest of the different shows in that category, take a look at this. So you have Anne with an E, you have Cardinal, you have Coroner, Mary Kills People, and Vikings. So that's all up for Best Drama Series.
Look, Anne with an E is one of those shows that you can export from Canada to the world because they love that stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
All right, also the CSAs, they look at the best in film.
Yes.
How's that, Reese?
Okay, so get out your pens or your phones, whatever you want to jot this down with, because these are great films to know. The first one, Antigone. Some people pronounce it Antigone if you're, from Montreal, but Antigone is based on, that's actually a Greek myth, and they've really brought that one up to date. This is Montreal-based director Sophie Deraspe. It's a tale of an immigrant family in trouble with the law, and it's got 7 nominations, and I'm going to give you a little bit of a sense right now. Even though it's in French, you get a feel for the mood. Have a listen.
Maintenant, il faut sauver Polynice.
Là, il est accusé d'assaut sur un policier. Ils prennent ça très au sérieux.
Ça marchera jamais, Tato. J'ai peur pour toi. Fais ce qu'il faut. C'est tout.
So yeah, very intense drama there, right? Anne at 13,000 Feet is another one on the list here. This is a portrait of a young woman who's on the edge. There's a mental illness at play here, and so that's one to watch out for, Anne at 13,000 Feet. There's also The Body Remembers When the World Broke Open. This is a really powerful story about 2 women from different walks of life. And then The 20th Century, Dwight, is a weird, very creative take. I don't mean weird in a bad way. It's the story of former Prime Minister William Lyon Mackenzie King. It earned 8 nominations, including Best Picture, and this one, White Lie. Check this out. A university student who fakes a cancer diagnosis for attention and financial gain. So again, intense kind of drama there. The one thing I want to say in conclusion here, Dwight, is the fact that we have done better in Canada so far than a lot of the awards south of us, because 2 of the 5 nominees for cinematography, 3 of the 7 nominees for director, and 3 of the 6 nominees for editing are women. So there's just a little more parity happening here on the north side of the border.
Yeah, we're a little better than those Americans. Gonna give a shout out to Farah Morelli, who's up for Best Local Reporter.
Yes.
And she's one of ours.
Yes,
Thank
that's
you, Yelena.
right. Good luck.
It has been a messy day, to say the least, but this weekend could make it all worth it. Call It's back after the break with a final look at your forecast. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome to your Toronto newsroom. Good evening. I'm Mike Wise.
There was a magical preview at the Art Gallery of Ontario, the museum's newest exhibit, Illusions, the Art of Magic.
It's an extraordinary exhibition of more than 50 great posters from the golden age of magic between 1880 and 1930, when magic was one of the most extraordinary performing arts and forms of entertainment anywhere in North America.
The exhibit will transport you back 100 years to a time of wonder and awe when magicians first started hitting the international stage. From vintage posters to Houdini memorabilia, the exhibit showcases the golden age of magic where death-defying tricks, daring escapes, and colorful personas blossomed. Visitors at the sneak peek yesterday also got a chance to see a performance by the Toronto Magic Company. The exhibit officially opens on Saturday and runs until May 17th. It was a long time ago, but it wasn't in a galaxy far, far away. A museum in Athens is dedicated to displaying ancient Greek technology, everything from alarm clocks to robots that serve wine.
It is considered as the first robot in history from the 3rd century BC. It would stand as you see it on a festival. People would come by, drop their cup on its hand, and automatically the hand would start moving. As the hand was moving, it would start pouring out wine.
That's actually kind of cool. The robot operates using a system of weights and springs and can automatically mix water and the wine. Didn't you just turn the water into wine? I don't know. I digress. There are other inventions reproduced for the exhibit include automatic doors, a water-powered alarm clock built by the philosopher Plato, and the first analog computer which could forecast and track astronomical events.
Not the weather.
I was just going to say. Not trying to replace you, Colette, but no, they can't. They couldn't forecast the weather. You can, though, and
yes. And
I mean, we're looking further away to the weekend, but we're going to put up with everything till we get to then.
Yeah, we do have some colder air that's going to move in, and we've got to kind of get ready for that. We've been doing this up, down, but when it strikes, it's like, oh boy. So just remember, we are going to see, tonight's not so bad, but we're going to start to see a couple of cold nights beyond that. So this evening, the temperature coming down gradually, it's going to go to 0, then -5 overnight. That's well above seasonal, but feeling like -12. But tomorrow afternoon, so today a high of 5, tomorrow afternoon, Dwight, -3, and it'll really be tomorrow night that you're going to feel it. So that would be Thursday morning, and the next night, Friday morning, where we may get into an extreme cold weather alert coming into play again, because our wind chills will make it feel like we're around -20. But we just have to get through those couple of days, because Friday, Saturday, Sunday look amazing.
It's going to be well worth it, folks. That's our show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Mike Wise has your next local news tonight at 11 after the National. Colette and I will see you back here tomorrow at 6.